Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast that nukes the fridge. This is Reviews Without Remorse. I am Joe, and I am a double agent. No, wait, I'm a triple agent. No, wait. And with me, as he swings through the jungle with his army of monkey friends, is Dave. This is episode number 85, and in this episode, the Scarlet Witch and Loki are slated to headline Marvel's new streaming service. What can we expect? We will speculate. Speaking of Marvel, James Gunn's script for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will be used, but what does it mean? And we discuss 3 new trailers. The Transformers get a prequel in Bumblebee. Dark Phoenix, the X-Men movie that we almost didn't see the light of day, finally gets a trailer. And we get another look at Creed 2. We'll discuss all 3. And finally, the movie's so bad that it updated the jump the shark phrase. Reviews Without Remorse sinks into the quicksand and gets eaten by the giant ants as we discuss Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Welcome back, my friend.
How dare you give me a Mutt Williams designation? How dare you?
I let myself be Mac this week as opposed to trying to do Indiana Jones this week. Did I fare any better?
I mean, they're both very one-dimensional, so I guess not, but still. You know what? We should save that for the actual review. We've got other things to talk about.
We sure do.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Okay, so everybody and their brother is starting a streaming service. Disney, DC, all these people are starting. It's becoming ridiculous. You know, the one reason that Netflix succeeded was because it was your one-stop shop for all these, interesting new titles. And once everybody realized, well, shoot, if Netflix is going to be making money, maybe we should. The greed always does that. So Disney's starting one, NBC's got one, CBS has one, blah, blah, blah. Apple's working on one. Well, now it seems that Marvel is working on one, but they're kind of doing a kind of interesting little way of doing it. They're looking to take Tom Hiddleston and Elizabeth Olsen and do like an 8-episode series for each of their characters. That's going to be the pitch for them. I would say this is akin to CBS starting with a Star Trek series. Now, granted, that Star Trek series turned out to be shit, but as a way of selling your service, that's an excellent way to start it. This would be an excellent way for Marvel to start a service like that. Now, the DC service, which doesn't start until I think like January or something like that, as we all know, has that wonderful Titan show. But it also has Young Justice coming, and it also has classic episodes. It'll have Justice League, it'll have Batman animated series, and it will also allow you to read digital copies of comic books, which, to me is kind of a great little, okay, I can almost see that. So I'm kind of hoping Marvel does something similar to that. I just find it interesting that, talking about Hiddleston and Olsen, they're kind of doing pretty okay in the big screen. Do you think that they would actually divest themselves from that just to be on the small screen for these characters?
It's an interesting question. Yeah, I'm kind of fascinated by the whole thing. First of all, just to back up just from Marvel for a second. I mean, it really is getting to where this is going to sound like a very weird analogy, but I remember years ago talking about taxes, and I remember I used to sort of pitch the idea of how taxes are stupid and we should just only pay for the services we actually use. If that means a toll on every road, so be it. And of course, years later, I kind of realized, well, that would be a little complicated, and I kind of changed my tune on it. I kind of feel like TV is going to go that same route, though, where we are literally just going to pay for everything we watch little by little, and there's not going to be, it's almost like how many different streaming services can we possibly have? I don't know.
Afford.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm not, seriously, every channel I'm going to pay for individually, more or less. Ooh, I don't know. But anyway, that aside, Marvel, I think, has got a pretty good shot, probably the best shot of anybody, quite frankly. And this is sort of interesting too, because Disney's doing its own streaming service, but the Marvel streaming service is going to be separate.
Yeah, I'm worried a little bit about that, actually.
Well, for me, that's kind of good and probably for you too, because honestly, I don't need all the other Disney stuff, frankly. I kind of just want the Marvel stuff. So rather than having to buy a Disney service to get the Marvel, I'm glad this Marvel's doing it by itself, because I could definitely see myself paying for it, frankly. So yeah, and the shows, that's not a bad way to kick it off with Loki and the Scarlet Witch. I'm curious to see how the existing Netflix shows will fare with all this.
Well, the problem is that Netflix does own the rights of those characters right now in television format. It would depend. I think they'd have to do like a contract renegotiation for them to be moved off the service, and I think that would cost them a lot of money or something. I don't know how that would work. I do know that these shows will be spearheaded by Kevin Feige.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, that will make them officially part of the MCU as opposed to peripherally. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
I can't English today. But all that aside, yeah, my only problem is that there's a lot of services coming out now.
Yeah.
And I'm not rich. I know you're not rich. We do okay. But how many services can you possibly subscribe to?
Yeah, exactly. I'm frankly, I'm already feeling like I'm kind of maxing out because I've got the Amazon and Netflix, and already I'm sort of feeling like that's a little much. I like them both, and I know other people in my family uses them, so I'm not going to cancel it. But yeah, I don't know how many more of those I can pile on.
Yeah. Well, on the bright side, the Amazon one comes with free shipping stuff, so there's
that is true. That is why I'm not getting rid of. If I had to get rid of one, frankly, I'd probably get rid of the Netflix, because truthfully, as much as there are definitely shows on there that I like and would hate to have to scramble to find another way to watch them, frankly, that Amazon Prime is pretty sweet. And honestly, if I just decide, I get a little bug in my bonnet that I want to watch, a certain movie, 99 times out of 100, if I search Netflix, it is not there. So, again, it's really good for shows and a couple random movies here and there, maybe. Honestly, I would probably get rid of that one first, because the Amazon, just the free shipping alone is pretty sweet sometimes, and the 2-day shipping, thank you.
Yeah, seriously. Well, let's hope Marvel offers the same type of value. If they offer it as part of their Marvel Unlimited, where you can also get to read any of their comics, I'm probably going to go in, because I think that's pretty damn cool to be able to just, hey, you know what? I'd like to read the first Captain America. Boom, pull it up.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, like I keep saying, because I've become such a fanboy, because Marvel has just hit it out of the park so consistently, I can't see myself not doing it. I can't see myself just letting these shows slide by and not trying to watch them. Even YouTube, by the way, got me just to watch Cobra Kai.
YouTube got me to pay for a month or two of that before I decided, okay, I don't need it anymore. I'll turn it back on when the next season of Cobra Kai comes back. Yeah, but
oh, that was worth it though. That was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
First you say you do, and then you don't, and then you say you will, and then you won't. You're undecided now, so what are you gonna do? Now you
All right, so looks like we are going to see James Gunn's script for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That's good news, I guess. I mean, yeah, it is good news. But I guess it's just kind of a compromise. I mean, it's sad we're not going to get James Gunn directing, I guess. But at least his vision is in, let's hope, good hands.
I guess it would depend upon who the director is. But yeah, this is as close to a compromise as you're going to get from Disney. Once they shot themselves in the foot with Gunn, there was no going back. We had many discussions about whether they will, they won't they, like a freaking old episode of Cheers going on there. But the truth of the matter is once the decision is made, you can't go back. There's no way to go back because it's all about freaking face, especially in Hollywood.
Right.
If they had done that, that just would have been like that would have started a steamroller that you would never be able to stop. So I understand why I don't agree with it, but I understand why they didn't roll it back. Using his script is a great compromise and will quell a lot of the fan outrage if they at least feel like James Gunn's, trilogy vision will be met, even if it's not him leading them into battle. I guess at this point it depends upon who they ask. There was a rumor at one point that they were talking about Bradley Cooper directing it, and look, I know the guy just is coming off of A Star Is Born, but I don't think you're ready for that yet, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, I agree.
This was announced actually by his brother, Sean Gunn, who is still in the movie. Sean Gunn is the on-set reference to Rocket when they film Rocket scenes, as well as plays the Kraglin. He is the one member of the Ravagers that survived the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. When Yondu blew up everything, he was the guy that helped Yondu get his little horny thing back. Yes. That's Sean Gunn. That's the brother of James Gunn. So he's in it. He's got a part, and he pretty much announced this. So I'm personally glad. I was really worried that, because James Gunn, when he writes the script, he also says this song plays here and this song plays here and so on and so forth. Yeah. He's got that all mapped out, and I'm happy in a small respect. I really, really wish he was directing. Although it wouldn't surprise me if Disney pulled he's consulting since he is the scriptwriter on set, and then he's by proxy directing. It wouldn't surprise me if something like that happens. That's another sneaky way around of getting him back into the director's chair. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is true, and you're right. It is all about face at this point. But yeah, I honestly, I'm very happy to hear at least that the script is being used, because I kind of feel like you said, I want to know how the trilogy ends, and I want to know what he. I mean, again, we've been along the James Gunn ride thus far, and everybody's very happy with it. So I at least want to see how it ends. And again, if you get a good director, Taika Waititi, hi, I'm looking at you. I think we'll be all right, frankly. So I'm happy with it.
I'm Charlie Watson. I'm 18. Today, actually. Is the Beetle for sale?
It's yours, kid. Happy birthday.
Okay, so this takes place, Bumblebee takes place in 1987.
No idea.
It is a
Another prequel set in the 80s.
Yes, because that is the thing that everybody's doing now. It is not directed by Michael Bay. It is directed by a man named Travis Knight from a screenplay by Christina Hodson. It stars Justin Theroux, John Cena, Haley Steinfeld. And I'm still leery about it, but I'm going to be honest with you for a second, dude. When the trailer showed Soundwave ejecting Ravage out of his chest, I lost it!
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Funny? No, that was awesome! Damn it, man, that was awesome! That's it. I'm going to wind up seeing the movie anyway. I've got very little choice. I've got a 14-year-old boy. He loves the Transformers. He's going to want to see it, so I'm going to wind up seeing it. That's happening. But at least now, I feel like I've got something to look forward to.
It does look kind of interesting. I'll give you that. It'll be nice to kind of get away from the Michael Bay, the Michael Bays. I mean, I don't have to say anything more than that. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like something that could have a little heart to it. So we'll see. I don't know. It's never really been my bag, and I actually don't think I've ever sat through an entire Transformers movie ever.
You don't have to start. You don't have to start.
No. Yeah,
I'm not suggesting this. If there's a friend of mine who has suggested that prolonged exposure to the Transformers movies eventually will lower your IQ.
And I believe it. Yeah, but hey, this one does look a little different. It's got a little kind of an Iron Giant kind of vibe to it, I think, in a way. We'll see. Could be the warm fuzzies meets Transformers that we've all been waiting for.
All I know is this: if it's not a success, that's pretty much the end of Bayformers.
Yeah, pretty much.
You think you can fix me?
Jean, you are not broken.
This is the end, beautiful friend.
The mind is a fragile thing. Takes only the slightest tap to tip it in the wrong direction.
This is the end.
Charles, what did you do?
I had to keep her stable. I protected her.
And then you got Dark Phoenix.
All right, can I jump in before you say anything?
Go right ahead.
Because I'm really starting to feel like, remember the episode, which I'm sure we were going to reference greatly in this episode, the episode of South Park when all the kids are staggering out of Crystal Skull and they're screaming and crying and throwing up, and there's Butters in the background going, "Oh, I thought it was pretty good."
Are you Butters, Joe?
I kind of feel like I'm Butters when it comes to the X-Men movies, and honestly, I saw this one and I went, "Okay, yeah, it looks pretty good," but I have a feeling I'm gonna get schooled really fast.
Okay, so the last X-Men movie, as we know, was Apocalypse, and it was not good. It was, at best, okay. Probably the only good part of the entire movie was the rescue in the mansion by Quicksilver, but even that's kind of starting to run out of steam, pun not intended. Here's my problem. I find it galling that they're trying to go down the Dark Phoenix path again after they screwed it up so badly the first time. This is an iconic upon iconic story within the comic world. Okay? This was the first time a comic book killed off a main character ever. And it stuck for years. It stuck for years. A good 20 years before she came back. Not 20 years, maybe like 10 or 15 years. Whatever it was, my point being is this. This was a huge story. It's a beloved story. And the key to this story, for it to work, you have to love Jean Grey. And as of right now, as of X-Men Apocalypse, I don't love Jean Grey. I think she's attractive. That's about it.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I guess the bottom line is you really can't do, unless you're going to make it like a full-blown trilogy, you probably can't do the Dark Phoenix justice at all on film. Because like you said, it is this story takes how many issues?
It was
years,
almost
really.
a full year. I think she converted, and I think it was like a year and a half later before she finally died.
And that's just this part of the story. I mean, if you sort of knew her backstory, like if you had to do like the origin of Jean Grey all the way through to Dark Phoenix, you're probably talking about years. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I didn't, like I said, I'm kind of Butters when it comes to the X-Men movies. X-Men 3 never bothered me the way it bothered everyone else. And I mean, there was a lot of things in it that were glaringly awkward. Cyclops just sort of getting killed off in the beginning off camera and never being revisited again. Weird. Beyond that, though, I kind of thought it was a pretty good film. There was a lot of it that I really liked. Apocalypse is another one that I kind of liked and nobody else did. So yeah, I guess like I said, I'm Butters when it comes to X-Men. I kind of I'm missing the big picture, I guess. I mean, and it was funny because I was a big X-Men fan when I was younger, but I guess I don't remember the Dark Phoenix saga well enough to really kind of, and again, like I said, there's so many things that happen in that. It's almost like I feel like doing the Secret Wars would be a lot easier than doing Dark Phoenix. And
it would be, actually.
You know, and honestly, that, like you said, they keep trying to sort of sum it up in one film, and it doesn't quite work. But again, I sort of just take that into consideration and understand that and feel like, well, there's a lot of big comic book stories that, you know, again, may have been fleshed out over many, many issues and over time. And if you do it right in the film and sort of pay homage to the story, you know, like Civil War comes to mind. You know, again, not exactly how it happened in the comics by any stretch, but still a good tribute, sort of.
It doesn't have to be exactly like the comics. It just has to get the main point across. Mm-hmm. You have to, first of all, and even the comic didn't get it right. The movie got it more right than the comic. Because in the comic, at one point, you know, Tony gets so desperate for help that he actually starts hiring supervillains to work for Pro Registration, completely negating his argument.
Yeah,
and making him the like the movie. At least you watch Civil War, and you may go in as Team Iron Man or Team Cap, but by the halfway point, both sides have been represented so damn well that you could easily find yourself going either way. Agreed. That's how you do a story like that.
Yeah, which is pretty much my point, is that you can take some liberties and truncate and pay homage to the story on which it's based. Now, having said that, I'm not making any predictions that this is what Dark Phoenix is going to do. I'm just saying it's possible. So again, I saw the trailer and was like, okay, you know, again, I mean this. The X-Men First Class going forward, Apocalypse notwithstanding, has been pretty stellar. And I kind of feel like one little wobbly misstep with the last one, I still have enough faith that they could do something good. Although, like, again, I am aware of a lot of reshoots. I'm aware that this has been put on hold for a long time. I don't know how much of that is because of the Marvel's purchase of Fox, or if it's because the movie is very problematic. So again, I kind of got my fingers crossed. Like I said, I know I'm really in the minority here. I mean, I saw a lot of videos where everybody just ripped this trailer to shreds, and I'm sitting there going, well, I thought it looked pretty good. On the bright side, go ahead.
I don't know what to say to you, sir. I mean, I'm because like one of my problems is it's like I'm gonna go right back to what I started with, and that was you gotta like Jean Grey. And right now, I don't like Jean Grey.
Very
and
true.
To be perfectly honest with you, the actress playing Jean Grey, Pretty Lady, is not strong enough. I don't think, or at least has not shown any indication that she is strong enough to be able to pull this type of part off. Is it possible that they can get it right? Sure. But if they had an actress that I felt, weirdly, I kind of wish it was Jessica Chastain was playing Jean Grey, because I think she could pull it off.
Yeah, that would be some stellar casting. I mean, it's just like, again, the tricky part is they did this whole First Class thing, so everybody is much younger.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, Jessica Chastain playing off Cyclops as her boyfriend? Probably not. Not the current one anyway. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a wobbly starting point, so it would be pretty tough for them to pull it off. And yeah, I agree with you on again, that whole Game of Thrones casting, where suddenly now everybody from Game of Thrones was popping up everywhere, oddly, because again, they look, Game of Thrones is popular, we got to get them in other things, but they put them in things that they don't belong in. Like they're naturals in Game of Thrones. In some of these other things, yeah, not so much. On the bright side, if Marvel does what it does with X-Men, what it did with Spider-Man Homecoming and said, okay, what have we already seen to death? Then they'll avoid the the Dark Phoenix saga when Marvel gets X-Men back.
If we don't do what we love, then we wouldn't exist.
Time, kid.
Creed 2, Ivan Drago squaring off against Rocky Balboa. That one quick shot of the two of them standing. Oh my God, I'm like, that's it. This has got to be one of those rare occasions where, again, talk about appealing to multiple generations. The new generation that are just into these Creed movies and the older generation that was raised on Rocky Balboa. Oh my God, forget it. So this is like, again, I knock on wood, please get this one right. But again, the last few of these films, we've been over it a million times, so I won't belabor it, but they've been magnificently pleasant surprises. So I got high hope. I'm trying to not go in so hyped, but boy, is it hard to calm that fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can't see me. Joe can see me. I'm kind of bouncing up and down in my seat as I'm talking about this.
He sure is.
I've been dying to talk about this. I loved this trailer. I loved that there's an information dump, and yet it's still holding back. We barely saw a punch being thrown between Adonis and Drago. Mm-hmm. We see him training a lot. We see at one point that he's fallen down. We see that, Felicia Rashad, emotional moments like, don't pretend like this is for your father. Yes. Which, by the way, I know that you had a problem with her in the first movie. That one scene redeemed that first movie for me as far as I'm concerned.
My problem with her wasn't that much. It was just kind of like I probably would have preferred a more unrecognizable character for that one. You're right. That was a great delivery. That was a great line. The whole thing, the whole movie. I mean, every line so far has been stellar. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised that Ryan Coogler is not doing this one again. I mean, obviously because he was off doing Black Panther. Mm-hmm. But that flavor still seems to be there. The writing is still solid. Again, oh my God. I tell you, I mean, we've mentioned how the stuff that's been left on the plate, Predator, Venom, Aquaman, the three of them combined, I wouldn't pay a ticket for. This one,
and yet we're paying a ticket for one of them this week.
Yes, we are. You're welcome.
Sorry for the interruption. Please continue.
No, this has been the shining star. This has been the shining star on the schedule that I can't wait to see and can't wait to talk about.
As far as I'm concerned, this is. I mean, of course, there's going to be Oscar bait coming. There's that First Man movie that, even though it's got Ryan Phillippe in it, it's about Neil Armstrong, so I'm kind of interested in this. But when it comes to 2018, this is the last movie that I've been dying to see. Like, of the entire year. And there's been some strong stuff that has come out this year. This is it. This is the last one. After this, as far as I'm concerned, it's all downhill.
Yeah, it really is. But boy, am I excited for this one.
The trailer was excellently put together. I even loved how they kind of intermingled, the DMX song into, a little bit of the Rocky theme right there at the end, leading up to, and God, they just look at each other. Just Dolph Lundgren and Sylvester Stallone just looking at each other inside the ring just was like such a squee moment for me. I know exactly what you mean.
Oh my God, it was crazy. I can't wait.
Neither can I. It says November 21st is when it's supposed to be coming out. That's too damn far away.
Legend says that a crystal skull was stolen from a mythical lost city in the Amazon. Supposedly built out of solid gold, guarded by the living dead.
Indiana Jones, all right!
Hey there, Stan. All set to see my new adventure?
You bet, Indiana! No! Look out, Indy! It's Steven Spielberg and George Lucas!
Well, hello there, Indiana. You're looking good.
No, what are you gonna do to him?
Oh, yeah. No!
Indy!
In 1957, archaeologist and adventurer Dr. Henry Indiana Jones Jr. is called back into action and becomes entangled in a Soviet plot to uncover the secret behind mysterious artifacts known as the Crystal Skulls. Written by David Kopp, story by George Lucas and Jeff Nathanson, based on characters created by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman, directed by Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. What the hell?
I tell you what, I'm going to shout out to my buddy Scott. For many years, Scott and I have always kind of been on the same page when it came to Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. You know, we kind of just, both of us sort of, even though a lot of people liked it, we both kind of agreed that it was pretty subpar and pretty bland and pretty forgettable. We ripped on it pretty good sometimes. When Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, I don't know who said it first, but Scott and I both said it. Boy, that Crystal Skull makes Last Crusade looks like Citizen Kane, doesn't it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, weirdly enough, I almost want to go back a week and give an extra point to Last Crusade just for not being Crystal Skull.
You know?
It's like, okay, let's lose all the extra whimsy that we put in for Last Crusade, and be a little more serious and only have like tiny moments of humor. I watched this movie and I understood what the plot was. I didn't care.
I feel like I understood it just barely. I mean, I knew what was happening. I forget what movie we were talking about. I guess we were talking about Predator when you said that there was like, it was like, this happens, and then that happens, and then. I kind of feel like that's what this is. It's like, yeah. and then, because again, they jump right out of the gate with the main plot. There's no kind of subplot. There's no, he's not coming off a past adventure like all the other films did, like where he was that you saw him in a different adventure before you got introduced to the new adventure that this film will be about. Now, this one jumps right into it. And with that in mind, I mean, again, you'd think you'd have more time spent on this story. You jump right into it, and you still don't quite get what they're doing, why they're doing it. I mean, there was a whole explanation in Raiders about the Ark, what it is, what its power is, why the Nazis would want this, and why we need to get it first. Here, I got no idea. I have no idea. They want it. Indy's there. He kind of gets wrapped up in it but still, I don't really see what the motivation either way is. And even at the end, I mean, even when everything has been revealed, I'm like, so what was this all for?
Knowledge was the treasure, Joe.
Ugh, barf. Why would a random Russian lady with a terrible I've never seen anything that Cate Blanchett has been in that I didn't like her in. I don't like her in this.
No, well, she does the best that she can, but the accent is so over the top that, I mean, I swear to you, in my mind, I was thinking it's Natasha. It's Natasha and Boris from...
We must get Moose and Squirrel.
Yep, the big guy that got eaten by the ants, that was Boris, and she was Natasha.
Yeah.
That's how badly stereotypical it was.
Yeah.
And the weird part is there was actually, I mean, it takes place in 1957 in the height of the Red Scare. There was some stuff that they could have actually mined as part of the story that they sort of tried to do, with him getting fired from the university because, he supposedly helped the Soviets, but they never go anywhere with that. And then all of a sudden, he's assistant dean by the end of the movie.
Yes, right. They never take that anywhere. They go to the trouble, and again, like you said, this was a time in history where McCarthyism, the Red Scare, okay, that's a thing, but they kind of played it up in a weird way. Because, if you watch the Plinkett review, by the way, he's dead right when he says that there were no protests on college campuses in the 50s. In the 50s, everybody was kind of mild-mannered and minding their business, and it wasn't until like the late 60s that you had protests. You did not have protests about anti-communism. So this whole kind of the Red Scare angle they're trying to play up is a little misguided. But again, show me how this will effectively help the plot along. I'll I'll be on board with pretty much anything. But no,
Right.
they bring this up. It never comes up again.
Yeah, they just bring it up as a reason why he's not working at school, and that's why he's leaving, and that's how Mutt finds him, and all that stuff. It's a plot convenience, but it's not even a good plot convenience because they immediately erase it at the end of the movie with no explanation.
Exactly, but even there, it's not really. I mean, every other film, he's been a professor. You didn't have to kick him out of the school to explain why he's off doing something else. I mean, that was completely unnecessary.
It's amazing how forgettable. Not only the plot itself is just you give up on the plot, but how forgettable the stunts are. I mean, that chase that happens on the motorcycle where he's on the back of the motorcycle had like one, maybe two moments of, oh, that's kind of impressive that it looks like Shia LaBeouf is actually driving Harrison Ford around in Connecticut. But that was about it. And that was kind of just like a momentary ooh, not like that ooh you get when you see Tom Cruise hanging off a damn airplane.
Right.
But it was the most passionless action I've seen.
Yeah. There's a part where, and again, it's really kind of cartoony the way they do that. There's a part where you're right. He's on the back of a motorcycle. The motorcycle goes up alongside a bus for some reason. And I remember watching this again, and I kept watching this, going, "Why is the bus right there?" Like they for some reason, like the bike pulls up along the right side of the bus, and then the car with bad guys pulls up along the right side of the bike. I thought, the car is going to swipe to the left and crush the bike in between the bus and the car. Well,
Which would have been the smart thing to do.
Right. I mean, you figure that's the danger, right? Isn't that what they're going to do? No. Mm-hmm. They start punching at Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones is punching back, and they pull him into the car. And just long enough, and Shia LaBeouf goes, what do I do now? So he swings around to the other side of the car for some reason, as if he knows Indy's going to climb out the other side of the car and get on the back of the bike. And I remember, again, I'm watching this time going like, all right, but why is that bus there? That bus is oddly there for some reason. I can't put my finger on why. But anyway, I kind of thought it was very cartoony, him climbing onto the back of the moving motorcycle and dragging himself in the back. And then the moment where he hits the brake and he jumps on and you hear dun 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 dun, dun as it sort of speeds off. I remember thinking to myself, that music beat was not earned. You can't play the Indiana Jones theme for that. That was not good enough for that.
No. In fact, if the more I think about it, the only time they earned the use of that beat was right in the beginning, where he gets out. They throw him out of the back of the thing. He picks up his hat and puts it on in the shadow, and that little beat. That was it. That was the only time they earned that little musical beat. After that, it went all downhill.
Yeah, I will say this: as long like. Okay, spoilers. Joe and Dave don't like this movie, and they're going to spend the next hour ripping it apart. Yeah. All right. So let me, as long as we're on that moment, let me kind of sidestep for a second and say, yes, there was, if there's anything that I like about the film, is that they did seem to be working towards getting the look of the originals back. And there were moments when that happened. But
there were moments.
Yeah, right. There were moments. The shot, like you said, him putting the hat on, the shadow cast against the car, which again comes and goes real fast. But again, I remember seeing that and saying, you know what? They couldn't even be bothered to do stuff like that in Last Crusade. Like Last Crusade, I always said, like looks very sloppy, looks very lazy to me. So I did feel that there was an attempt to get a look and a feel back. There were a lot of music cues that reappear in this film. Which I like, again. Yeah, and okay. I mean, again, a lot of that is kind of pandering. A lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Fan service. Yeah, but at least they're trying to kind of get back into the feel of it. Now they fail pretty quickly on, and we'll get to it. But I'll say that they tried.
Yeah, they tried. I don't know, man.
I'm not passionate about this point, so go ahead and tell me I'm wrong.
No, it's not that. You're just reminding me of everything about this movie that just hurt.
Yeah.
Because it's like there are moments. There are moments that work, and I really feel like as each Indiana Jones movie progressed, they got a little bit stranger and a little bit stranger, and then into weird directions. And we have been speculating back and forth as to why that was. Now, the best theory that we had come up so far is that this is because there's no Philip Kaufman. That's been probably the best theory of all. Now, I kind of feel like I kind of feel like nobody cared or just gave up. What happened here? This is the problem that I have, because the action is so lifeless, and Spielberg has a lot of shortcomings. Usually action is not one of them. So I don't know why it felt so lifeless. It's like he had no passion for it.
Yeah. Well, let's throw out a couple theories. Here's one. You got drinking my coffee and sitting in my chair, George Lucas, sitting there. Because honestly, one of the things that sort of shocked me in this movie about how bad this was. I couldn't believe how, and I said this before about how in the last one, it had kind of a claustrophobic feel, like everything was shot on sets. Here, oh my God, am I getting that vibe? And it's funny, now that I'm watching it like a second, third time, wow, am I noticing it? Even the shots when they pull up, right? Like once they pull up in the cars, they pull Indy and Mac out of the trunk. They get up. And then what's-her-face walks over, and now things are underway. Once she shows up, I'm looking at that going, wow, does that look like it was filmed on a soundstage? Not only does it feel like it's on a soundstage, but if you look in the background, it looks so bad. It looks like a 50s movie where you can see where, like, you'd have some trees in the background, but then you can see the line in the floor where the actual backdrop starts. Now this is, they're doing it with CGI, but it's still the same exact process. It's still the same idea. You can see where the practical props end and the backdrop begins. It was so flat looking. And I'm like, wow, how do you get that wrong? That looks awful.
And you've got an amazing director. The cinematographer is Janusz Kaminski, who's worked with Steven Spielberg since I want to say Schindler's List.
Yeah, I think so too.
These are not slouches in the world of cinema and storytelling. This is why this movie hurts. We talk about the South Park episode where they're raping him and everything, and that is funny and everything like that. It's a bit of an over exaggeration, but
not by a lot.
Well, hear me out. That's going to an extreme, because it's really it's not a character. How do I put this? Here's what it is. What bothered me most about this movie is not the commercialization, I can't even think of the word, but whatever it is they did to Indiana Jones here wasn't, at least relatively, it didn't really hurt Indy. And to me, what gets me about this movie is that I just kind of feel like nobody cared. Then if nobody cared, why did they do it?
Well,
and the reason why it hurts me is because I kind of feel like, this was something that Spielberg wanted to do. This was something that Harrison Ford wanted to do. And it was almost like, well, this is the only way you're going to get to do it. So they kind of put on their game face and tried. And I feel bad for everybody on the screen, because it just feels like they're going through the motions because they had no choice. This is the crap they had to deal with. Yeah. That's what hurts me about the movie.
Listen, I think if you have to point a finger anywhere, I hate to say it again, but I think you got to point at George Lucas. When you watch the making ofs and they're talking to Spielberg about what he's like, George wanted this, fine, whatever. George wants to do this, we'll do that. It just feels like across the board, instead of saying, no, that's a stupid idea, they go along with whatever he says. And it's like, they have to know. They have to understand that George Lucas is not George Lucas. Like, he's the guy who got very lucky early on, as far as I'm concerned. And he's not the filmmaker that I think people think he is. You know, I mean, seriously, this is something that, like, if I'm in the room, okay, and George Lucas is pitching to me Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men from Space, okay, because this was one of the titles that was bandied around, and he really wanted, he was the one who wanted aliens. He wanted a science fiction angle. And the way it's sort of presented when you hear them talking about it, about how, you know, we did like the serials in the 30s. Well, now we're in the 50s, so we should probably be doing like a sci-fi, because the those sci-fi B movies were really popular. You know, like the War of the Worlds and the Thing Came from Outer Space, and it's like, you know, so that's what we should do. And I'd be sitting there going like, George, I like where your head is, but let me tell you why you're wrong. Like, on paper, it kind of makes some sense, but at the end of the day, no, that is not what Indiana Jones is. And to try to shoehorn him into that kind of a story doesn't work. So, I mean, and literally you have that the genres don't match up. You got him running around in the jungle with the Aztecs and all this other, the Mayans and whatever things they were kind of mixing together for this. And then to end up with spacemen, after you had three films that were dedicated to religious artifacts. I mean, that's what archaeology is. To now throw in space aliens, like, again, didn't somebody sit down and be like, no, that's why would you think people are going to want that? Why would you think that would work? It's so beyond. By the way, I have a theory which we could spend a lot of time on if we want to go there.
Can you sum it up? Sum it up.
Yeah, I'll sum it up. George Lucas hates God and he's going to hell. I seriously believe, okay, and I'm being funny, I'm being a little facetious, but this is what I believe. I seriously believe that as George Lucas got older and he started to his political leanings and his personal leanings went a certain direction, he got very I'll just say unimpressed with religion and unimpressed with the idea of faith, which is fine. However, this also, by the way, explains why Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull no longer has anything to do with religion and has everything to do with science fiction. It's also, by the way, people are baffled why we have metachlorians instead of just the Force. Guess what? That's why, again, George Lucas, for some reason, has become allergic to the concept of faith and has decided that science must explain everything. And this is why a lot of these films feel so heartless and lifeless. And I'm not saying that you need to be a believer. I'm not saying you can't be an atheist. Whatever floats your boat. It's not really about that. Faith can be something completely different. It could be something internal. It can be something that, there's a whole, phenomenon, The Secret, in the last 10 years or so, that was like the big deal. And I watched that and I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's what we in Sunday school used to call faith. It's the same thing. So it's no matter how you want to approach this is fine. But to not have sort of an inner triumph, to not have inner beliefs in something bigger than yourself, that's why it goes sideways. George Lucas just decided, I don't like that stuff and I'm going to make my movies about this. Well, this is why nobody likes him, George. You can't get inspired by that. You can't get into that. You need to sort of, again, the Force, the whole world was walking around saying the Force be with you. There's people who literally turn that into a religion because it spoke to them. And then you sort of take that out. Well, this is what you got left. Nothing. Saucer men. And no one wants that. Again, the whole point of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this is another trope, by the way, that they still try to stick with, which is weird. We talked about the arc that Indiana Jones has, where he's a skeptic in the beginning, but by the end, he's convinced. Oddly enough, they try that here. Like, at least twice in the movie, they say that's a bedtime story or a ghost story. It's like, hey, I think at this stage of your career, Indiana Jones, if anybody says something is mystical and powerful, you go, yeah, hell yeah. Seriously, that was something they got right in The Force Awakens. In The Force Awakens, Han Solo is the one going, it was real. All of it. It was all real. And while everyone else is just like, wow, is that really true? Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was true. I saw it. That's where Indiana Jones should have been by now. Indiana Jones should have been saying, Yep, it's real. All that is real. I mean, every time I doubted, I was proven wrong, no matter how many times it happened. So that was a trope they could have gotten rid of.
All 3 times.
Literally. I mean, that they did that trope in 4 films now, where he starts off a skeptic and then becomes a believer. At this stage of the game, again, especially after a 20-year gap, however long it is, you probably could have tweaked that one a little bit.
It's an interesting hypothesis that George Lucas has, gone down a different path when it comes to faith and religion. It wouldn't surprise me. We really have no way of proving that. But regardless of what your feeling is on faith, there is ways of telling a story where you don't have to dismiss the idea. First of all, if this was a brand new story, if this was a brand new character, if this was a brand new everything, if this wasn't Indiana Jones, if this was Tennessee Bob and the Crystal Skulls, you could have gone that particular direction. But it wasn't. It was Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones has 3 times now gone up against mythical, and, God powers.
Yeah.
3 times.
Right.
Okay? This is not news anymore. You don't have to sugarcoat it. You could, it is okay to say, hey, you know what? Every once in a while, maybe it's just bippity boppity boo.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting, too, is that the thing that they're trying to do in this one, well, at least it looks like they're trying to do, but maybe half-heartedly, there's a suggestion in this that it's almost not even Indiana Jones' story, necessarily, that it's almost more the Mutt Williams story, to the point where they even allude to the idea at the end where he's putting on the hat, and Indiana Jones kind of takes...
putting on the hat.
Right,
almost
exactly.
Putting on the hat.
Indy takes it back. It's like, not quite, Junior, or something like that. But you could have had, Indiana Jones sort of playing... he could have been the guy, like I said, like Han Solo in the other one, to say, yeah, it was real, all of it. And Mutt Williams could be the guy coming in saying, this is all a crock of crap. This is not true. This is nonsense. And Indiana Jones would be like, well, you'd be surprised what you see. And let him be the one who's kind of the guiding light, and let that kind of arc. I mean, again, it's sort of a classic screenwriting thing where the character's arc starts out as like, they call it the lie you tell yourself or whatever, the lie you believe.
Right.
And this was, and again, they did it 3 times with Indiana Jones. 3 times where he's not buying a word of it, but by the end he's convinced because because it happens. He could have been in this one to be a little more of the father figure, the guiding light, the one who's shining a light on what's real. And Mutt could have been the guy not getting it, and by the end he sort of wakes up to the idea. And again, better casting for that Mutt character would have helped greatly, but still. The character, okay, I don't really have a problem with it necessarily. I mean, we did the father in the last one, which I didn't love. As long as we're sort of, Indiana Jones, again, like we said in the last one, the spotlight has been shined on his past. It's really not about him with a mysterious past. So the idea that he has a son in this is not bad. But again, maybe you should have had the son be the one to go on the journey, the mystical journey of enlightenment, and let Indiana Jones be the father figure who's incredibly experienced. And I liked, by the way, how, they did try to sort of show Indiana Jones as a very experienced person, like when he gets bit by the scorpion, the son, and he says, big one, small one, good, whatever. That was okay because it was almost
bigger
like
is better, yeah.
Yeah, and I liked it because it was kind of just like. Not a big deal, but just this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's been all over the world. They do that Pancho Villa little story in the background, which the idea that he's been through a lot of experiences kind of shines or kind of shows up. That works. I don't mind that. But again, yeah, the idea that he's going to call it a bedtime story, no.
This ain't going to be easy.
Not as easy as it used to be.
Because it is that time, sir. We have reached that moment. This is your moment. They do go fast. They do go very, very fast. And that's only because we keep discussing stuff even after we get to the point of the score. But, yes, sir, Joe, Indiana Jones, and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with a 3. I was going to go down as far as 2. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3. It's pretty awful. It's pretty tepid. It's not... Again, it's weird when you try to bring back classic franchises, I kind of feel like this one sort of has a vibe of Force Awakens / Last Jedi, frankly. I kind of feel like it really shines a spotlight on modern filmmaking versus classic filmmaking, what is important, what's not, how things are done. Because again, everything in this film, it's so weird, awkward. I mean, there's big things that we haven't even touched on that were just glaringly ridiculous. And it's painful. I mean, it's painful to watch. And again, like I said last week, this whole franchise is, I mean, every single franchise, anytime you use the word franchise, you're probably talking about a film series where the first one was spectacular and other films were made after that to try to live up to it and probably didn't surpass. If they did, it broke the rule, but I guarantee there's other ones that are terrible. Again, I watched this one and I'm saying like, I don't know what drives people anymore. I don't know what drives people as far as storytelling. I don't know what drives people as far as visuals. Again, there are moments that look good in this movie, and there are moments that are just absurd, that just look awful, and just look like the whole thing looks like a giant cartoon with actors laid on top. So yeah, I'm gonna just give it a 3. There's a part of me that wants to go even lower, but some people like it, some people are entertained by it. Fine, whatever. There is a reasonably good cast on screen, so there's my 3.
I gave it a 2. I don't have any compunction of taking away that extra point. Obviously, you're a nicer person than I am. The problem with this movie is numerous. You have bland villains, bland characters. I mean, the Mutt Williams character should have been a fascinating character. It should have been, because that was the intention. The intention was that at some point, the whip was going to get passed to somebody. Why do you think they included that scene at the end? Then why would you make such a bland character, charmless character? I mean, even at Indy's scummiest in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he still came across as charming at all times and knowledgeable. There was nothing of that here. Marion reappeared, and it was great. It was nice seeing Karen Allen again, so on and so forth, but she didn't have much to work with. Harrison Ford didn't have a hell of a lot to work with. He had a handful of moments that, with interactions with Mutt, the Scorpion and things like that. That was about it. John Hurt was completely wasted. Cate Blanchett,
right.
Why did she even show up? The visual effects went from, that looked pretty good, to, oh my God, is this your first day using Photoshop?
Right?
That whole ant sequence just irked me. From the minute the ants went up and bit her hand, I was like, oh, I blocked this out the first time, didn't I?
Yeah. Oh.
And then just watching that whole sequence, and the fact that every once in a while Indy would stop and explain what was going on, as opposed to going back to the classic, show don't tell. There was so much information dump in this movie to keep us up to date with the story that it just annoyed me. Oh. It's like, no, and the action was so bland and lifeless. I felt nothing. I felt more worried about Indiana Jones during that scene in Last Crusade where he's trying to jump off of the tank when they're pushing him towards the wall, because that was really well shot, as opposed to anything that happened in this movie. And that was still a bland scene in Last Crusade. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. I feel bad for everybody involved from this movie, because I feel like Spielberg and Ford, they really wanted to get a good last Indiana Jones out, and they capitulated to Lucas, and this is the result of what we got.
Yeah, right. And you said before, the storytelling is so dreary in this. I mean, literally, like I feel like there's no sense of story in here at all. It's the and then syndrome, and that's why there's all these information dumps, like you said. When they keep referencing this Ox character, I don't even think I even understood the first time what that was. You kept hearing like this talk about this guy Ox, right? And then later on, when he shows up, right, and he's like this babbling goober, right? Like you said, John Hurt, totally wasted. He like, why? And they're acting like, oh wow, look at him, he's all this, he's all that. I'm like, why do I care? I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. If you would introduce this character before, and I could see what he was like before, supposedly he got all goofed up because of he got the close encounter syndrome from the skull. If I saw him before, I can understand why I should care. If I saw him before, I can understand why you're anxious to find this person because he's actually kidnapped. I don't know who he is. I'm just hearing passing references about a guy. There's no substantial setup. There's nothing for me to care about with that. And then when he shows up, he just feels like this wart on the cast that now has to be dragged along. Who is serving no purpose at all. So, boy, I've never seen a character so wasted as that, who's supposed to be integral to the story. I mean, oh my God, it was just terrible. I mean, not for nothing. And the character assassination, I mean, I kind of feel like as much as I screamed about the character assassination of Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, I almost feel like Indiana Jones at moments is almost as bad. I mean, you're talking about a character in the opening of Raiders, the introduction to Indiana Jones in the opening of Raiders. Oh my God, that's like the most badass character intro you've ever seen. You go from that scene there, to him standing in the quicksand going, well, actually, quicksand, depending on its viscosity. When did he turn into a nerd? When did he turn into a goober? He's standing there like, oh, well, quicksand is made up of this and this and this and based on this or whatever. And, of course, somebody's going to go, Indy! Oh, my God, I'm so stupid. And again, the funny part is we haven't even talked about the vines and the monkeys and the refrigerator and pulling him out of the... I mean, there's no point. There's no need. I mean, everyone knows it was ridiculous. And you just kind of went, what? I mean, the whole thing is just baffling. And by the time you get to the end, you're just like... I mean, you're just glad it's over by the time it ends. I mean, there's nothing in this. The whole chase at the end. I mean, the part that starts. I shouldn't even get. I'm gonna get. I better rein it in, or else we're gonna be here for another half an hour. But I mean, seriously, I kind of like there's a point halfway through the movie where we could have done this.
I apologize for interrupting, but we could have done this show without any news. We absolutely positively could have. Yeah. There was so much to complain about with this movie. But please, I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but I know
we still got segments. I'm going to rein it in.
Yeah. So, since we're talking segments, Joe, who asked you?
Who asked me? Wow. Like I said, the moment where I feel like this movie really just turns south and there's like the moment where you've just lost all hope, where this movie has just gone off the edge. Once that chase starts in the jungle, with the machine. Oh, by the way, here's another Lucasism. By the way, remember how I said how his leanings kind of went in a certain direction, and again has just given up on religion. There's another thing I think he's kind of replaced it with, if you notice, and that is his love of nature. Because I've noticed that he's got two films where the way he illustrates the evil of the bad guys is by a big machine tearing down nature. And I don't think that's a coincidence. In The Phantom Menace, he's got big giant ships bouldering through the forest, running down the nature, and the animals are running, screaming in the other direction. That's where they meet Jar Jar Binks. Why that scene is there, I don't know. Why they would land on the other side of the planet and bulldoze through everything to get to where they want to be don't make no sense. And so that always kind of stuck out at me. Here, they do it again. they need a machine to bulldoze through the jungle for some reason. A big giant fictional machine to bulldoze through so they can have the chase scene through there. Just a thing I kind of noticed. But anyway, that once they're in the jungle there and that dumb chase scene starts with, again, which leads up to Shia LaBeouf with the two legs on either car. Thank God nobody hits the brake or goes faster. Like that was awful. The fencing on the, come on. Like once that and throwing the skull back and forth, which by the way, the magnetic properties of the skull really kind of come and go whenever it needs to. That was really, so okay.
This is really a long way around.
Yeah, I really got to tighten this up, and I apologize. Okay, here's what I asked you. This is the bad CGI, the really terrible CGI again, which shows up in so many weird places in this film. It's obvious things were shot on sets, and the background was just added later. But here it just gets ridiculous. And this was a movie that Steven Spielberg promised was going to be so no CGI in this movie. It's going to be all practical, all real stuff. Bullshit. This thing is a CGI mess. That is the culmination. That bad truck chase, that tank, whatever those things are, trucks kind of, tanks kind of, whatever. That whole mess. Again, leading, and of course, there, with the jungle swinging on the vines with the monkeys, all terrible. Just all that part is just the worst part of it. So CGI / that stupid jungle chase. There you go. That's my.
There's a lot to mine from this movie for a Who Asked You. I have no idea who the hell those leaping kids in the graveyard scene were. What the hell that was all about.
So weird.
Mac being a triple agent, shocking. What was even the point of that? But honestly, it was the subjective magnets thing. That annoyed the ever-living hell out of me.
Yeah.
He's throwing gunpowder up in the air, and it's powerful enough to bring it all, and so on and so forth. And then some moments, the entire lights of the building will follow it, and some moments it won't. And, they're having a sword fight, next to the thing, and sometimes they try... There was like such an amazing level of incongruity with the power level of the magnetism of that skull or the bodies or whatever the case might be that I just didn't even care. It's like, it's just,
That was so dumb. No one who's ever walked through that warehouse wearing a belt buckle noticed this before?
Yeah, seriously. The lights should have been dim, pointing towards it. I just,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That was dumb. And the fact that this large warehouse, this large Area 51, which also had the frickin' Ark of the Covenant in it.
Yawn.
Okay. Yeah. He basically throws it up in the air, and this magnet is that powerful enough to get these little fragments from that. No, that's not how science works, George. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah. Right. For a guy who's now committed and loves science, you'd think you would have gotten that a little closer.
Yeah. That's my Who Asked You. I figure this next part's going to be where the real fun begins. I know I have a fun one. So, Joe, for your consideration.
Yeah. Ironically enough, my Who Asked You and my for your consideration are very similar, if not almost the same thing. So this is going to sound weird. But okay. I did appreciate the attempt by some people to try to get the visual look of Indiana Jones correct. They like you mentioned, they brought on Janusz Kaminski, but apparently they also brought in Douglas Slocum, who had worked on the previous Indiana Jones films, to try to get that look right. Again, it fails ultimately, but like even the shot, we're talking about the opening shot in the warehouse. Once when he escapes, or when he drops the gun, which is weird. Drops the gun, he makes a run for it. And you see him kind of running in between the boxes, and the sparks from the gunshots are sort of behind him. Like that me, I said that is classic Indiana Jones. It gets lost in the muddle that follows, but I did notice, and even the scenes that were like when he was at home, well shot. I mean, and there's also, by the way, some things in the background I noticed, or I read and finally noticed. aside from the shots of his father and Brody on the desk, there's also a couple of pictures in the background. Sala is in one, and apparently Willie Scott is in another one, but I've never actually found it. But anyway, that's it. Like I said, they brought Douglas Slocum back in to try to get that visual feel back, and there are moments when it works, but yeah, it is outweighed and lost in the shuffle very quickly. But that was the only thing I could think of that I appreciated.
Well, I actually found something, and I was just really amazed by it. And I said to myself, this is actually really brilliant. This is maybe the most brilliant thing that Spielberg has done his entire career. And I guess you didn't notice it, so I'm gonna explain it. Mutt Williams, technically speaking, with him asking Indiana Jones questions, he became the proxy for the audience.
Yeah.
So the scene during the truck chase where the bushes kept hitting him in the balls was extremely symbolic. So, thank you, Spielberg. That was brilliant. You made him our proxy, and then you kicked us in the balls. That's for your consideration.
Well done.
Also, I thought the Temple Throne Room was a neat design, but because of all the fuckery from earlier in the flick, because a part of me is like, wow, when they get into the main throne room where all the bodies of the crystal aliens are, I thought to myself, wow, if they actually built that, that's neat. And then I kind of like rolled my eyes afterwards, like, they didn't build that. There's no way they built that. If they had built it, I would have been impressed.
I think there were actually some things, like there was one of the doors that I think some of it was the one set at the end, by the way, the sand and the stairs that go down. And the big kind of arms that go up to sort of come together. That was practical. For why they even bothered at that point? Because, again, everything is so CGI that you don't even really... You can't tell what's not. But, yes, I mean, some of that was practical. But, again, it was kind of a waste of effort, really.
Well, because of the story more than anything else. Speaking of wasted efforts, next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, dear Lord.
I still can't believe you didn't pull this off the calendar, you dick!
We're a glutton for punishment.
My friend Joe has decided that he's going to pay me back for Tomb Raider in the most horrific way possible. First, it was The Predator. Then, it was scheduling Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull up against the premiere of our next review, which is the new Venom movie coming next week.
Did you ever think this day was going to come? Every time you heard them talking about a potential Venom movie, you're like, no. I think on this podcast, on one of the earlier episodes, I swear to you, I predicted that was never going to happen. I said, they're just talking about that. They're never really going to make that movie. And here we are.
Joe, never. You sometimes you give Hollywood more credit than they deserve.
I do. I really do. My girlfriend will tell you I'm silver lining guy, and it's irritating sometimes.
Oh my God, are you going to torture her with the movie, with Venom?
I highly doubt it.
Well, anyway, folks, for our art, we are going to suffer. And we will be seeing the movie Venom, and we'll be reviewing it next week. If there is no podcast next week, it is because Joe and I have committed seppuku.
There you go.
Because we've just had one too many bad movies in a row.
We can't do one more.
Oh, my God. You know what? Ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. Joking aside, I can guarantee you that there will be a review next week. We will not kill ourselves. We both want to live long enough to see Avengers 4.
That's just true. Very true.
So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Joe, thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Sorry the movie was what it was, but hey.
You know what, dude? We knew it was coming.
We sure did.
You know what? As much as we braced for impact, I swear to you, it still feels like I got a concussion.
It still stings.
Yeah. So until next time.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
No, we have to stop them. They're raping him. Ray, let's get out of here. We can't just leave. Come on. Oh, it's horrible. Oh, God. Somebody do something. Why are they doing this? They're just taking Indiana Jones and they're raping him. I can't watch. Let's get out of here, Kyle. Why would Spielberg and Lucas do this? Come on, let's go. Why are they doing this? Just run. Oh, God, what have they done? Why aliens? Aliens don't belong in an Indiana Jones movie. Come on, dude. There's nothing we can do. Why? We can't help him now. I thought it was pretty good. Let's just go.